It's your professionalism that I respect.
Chris, you there? You're not there.
Anthony,
you ducked out.
how are you, man? Hey,
I'm here. It's been a couple weeks since I've been on the show.
It's been a minute. How you doing? What's going on? Give me some good news. It's spring. It's beautiful outside.
It is. I was reflecting on actually my high school reunion's coming up. My 40 years coming up soon, and I was reflecting on how poorly I did with the girls in high school. And I think it was my pickup line, because I would say, "Hi, I'm Tony, and you should go out with me because my name spelled backwards is why not." Didn't go. I never scored with that.
I'm dyslexic, so that's how I see your name. It's also why when you asked me to do the podcast, I was like, sure, why not?
Why not? It's my theme. It's my life's purpose. Why not?
Pretty much. Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that's what your wife said when you asked her to marry you too. I guess, why not? It works pretty good. I don't know if you knew this, Anthony, but I was doing some family history stuff. My grandfather, he once worked at a typewriter keyboard factory, but it didn't really work out because he didn't put in enough shifts.
That's a stretch. That was a stretch.
I thought it was pretty good. He didn't put in enough shifts.
He didn't put enough shifts in.
Enough shifts. Maybe
there's a shift on my keyboard here. Let's see there.
So,
it says shift
keyboard,
on the keyboard. Shift.
I think that anytime we have to explain a dad joke that way, we've lost it. All right. So, Anthony, what if the money you're spending on impact is actually preventing it? Ted Castle embedded emergency loans into Rhino Foods factory floor. Not as a policy, but as an infrastructure. Impact that lived in the process outlasted every program they tried. Today, on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about the impact imperative, why well-funded impact initiatives so often produce press releases instead of measurable change, and what founders must build into their operational DNA before scale buries their mission. I am Chris Franks. With me, the elusive, the oftentimes absent, Mr. Anthony Franco. Welcome back.
I'm back.
We're joined by an incredibly handsome man, Mr. Jim Tracy. Jim Tracy spent 30 years as CEO of a family business across manufacturing, telecom, agriculture, real estate on 4 continents, building impact into operations, not annual reports. Anthony, how does it feel to be surrounded by beautiful bald heads?
There's a very inappropriate joke here that I'm just going to skip over.
Yeah, no, I think that most people that are actually watching probably guess.
What does that make me is the question.
Well, why not also begins with why.
Why? That's a very good point. Jim, thank you for joining us. You've built businesses across continents and industries. And what did you like? When did this idea of impact, start to play in to your role as CEO? And maybe even to start with, why don't you define what do you mean when you say the word impact?
It's a great question, because my wife and we actually choose a word every year. And coincidentally, the word for this year is impact. And in my work, I always made sure that I was out among the people who were actually earning the money for the company, for the family, for everybody. And so impact in my world is actually just making sure you're out touching the people, making sure that you're understanding. And in the back in the early 80s and the 70s, we used to call it MBWA. I don't know if you guys remember that, but management by walking around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the most impact that you can have with people is just letting them know that you care as much or more than they do. And that is the greatest impact you can have. People ask me all the time, like, what was your job, most important role as CEO? And I always have the same answer. I got to 200 employees and I was writing handwritten birthday cards to every employee. And so once a month, someone would give me a stack of cards, a stack of envelopes. Thankfully, when we got big enough, the envelopes were pre-addressed because we sent them to their home. But I would actually have to sit down and write out a card to somebody that a lot of times I didn't know very much about them, so I'd have to figure out, where they worked and what they did and all that kind of stuff. And I had grown men come up to me 5 years later and throw their arms around me and say, I've never gotten a birthday card before, and I'm so grateful.
Wow.
And these are construction guys. These are tough guys, and they have and they'd never had anybody who showed that they actually gave a rip. And it seems really small, but that's one of the most impactful things I did.
Anthony, I think it's such a good point. I think it frames up the conversation nicely because oftentimes in today's day and age, when we think about impact companies, the idea of a Patagonia or Tom's Shoes or a company that was founded specifically for a social impact or a social cause. But I had a great conversation with a founder that you and I both know, Anthony, that years ago that said, no, my impact is about creating a great place to work and making sure that people can save money and send their kids to college. And that's the impact that I want to have on the world, is to make sure that I employ people. How do you define impact, Anthony?
Well, you have to be careful. I think this is something that you have to be careful with, because how many companies get in trouble for, I'll give you the term that's coming to mind is greenwashing their brand in order to show that they have impact by putting the recycle logo on their social media post, or the right flag of the month in the right colors in their icons. And you've got to be really careful. If you weren't founded with impact in mind, then trying to enter that space, reverse engineer yourself into that, is extremely dangerous. Yeah. And I think it's perfectly fine for your impact to be providing a great place to work and really serving your customers really well. That seems like enough. And I actually like the term purpose more than I like impact. So I would say impact is a loaded term. So I would say focus on your purpose, and focus on the purpose why your customers come to you and why your employees come to you.
I'm going to ask the devil's advocate question to both of you, because, and I think it's a difficult conversation. There is an argument to be made that is not enough, Anthony. It's not enough to just say companies themselves are here to provide, money for employees and try to, and it's really now up to the company, because as other social institutions, church attendance, other things are kind of starting to degrade, that the company now has to play a more of a ethical and moral role in our society. I know it's a big and kind of philosophical question, Jim, but is that true? Is it true now that companies need to step into a void that was once filled by other societal institutions?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. They call it quiet quitting, but it's not quiet quitting. It's actually screaming at you. And if your people are leaving, then you're not filling the void that they need. And one of my least favorite terms in the world is human capital. I was like, when we moved into the private equity world, they're like, well, we need to take care of our human capital. I'm like, they're not money. They provide money. They let me go to the grocery store, but they're not capital. These are my friends and my families. And to Anthony's point, when they're engaged in taking care of the customer, they become taxpayers and homeowners and responsible people who actually get off food stamps instead of go on food stamps, and all kinds of good things happen when you provide culturally a place where they come to work, and on Sunday night they're not worrying about going to work. They're worrying about, hey, I want to get to work. And so when you can provide that, it's almost a magical experience, and it's hard to keep it going unless your purpose, taken from Anthony again, unless your purpose is right. You can't have impact without purpose. So there's a long-winded answer.
I mean, it's a difficult question, and I think it's one that's interesting because there's no clear right or wrong answer, but I've heard now there is this idea that companies, and Anthony, I want to ask you a similar question, which is, I hear companies and early stage founders oftentimes be like, hey, I want to start this company. It's going to do this incredible thing. I'm going to work with AI and I'm going to figure out a way to help human beings. I'm going to solve a real problem in their life by building them a product. And then also we're going to give some money to some causes that I believe in. It's like, it feels like an afterthought to their business. It doesn't seem adjacent or aligned. It may be aligned with the founder, but it also doesn't seem to be part of the business. And in my context, it feels almost disjointed of why, if you as a founder feel passionate about a cause and you want to support that, you can do that, but it's not necessarily something you have to embed into your business. Is that true or not true?
I'm going to sound cold-hearted here, but I don't think I don't think you have to have a social cause associated with your business. I just don't think it. I don't think it. Again, this comes back to: is it authentically something that who you are as the founder? Great, go do that. Make it a part of your business. If it's not, don't shoehorn it in because people will smell it.
Yeah. All right. So, Jim, give me an example. So you talked about just how employee engagement, how you can just make an impact with the relationships that you have and building strong long-term relationships. What are some of the other positive impact programs that you've seen within companies that either you've run or worked with them through the years?
Well, I'm going to go backwards just a minute because I think that what you're talking about is relevant in terms of social impact. And at Legacy, we ran a wireless telecommunications firm, and we built infrastructure. That means we have guys climbing towers, hundreds of feet in the air. And so our mission was to provide a better service than anybody out in the marketplace. But part of that mission also was to prove to people that we actually gave a crap. And a lot of what I did extracurricularly to the business was around the Tower Family Foundation, where we actually raised funds for Tower families who had experienced tragedy. And when your people see that, they're going, oh, so you mean that you guys help people in my profession when they're at their most vulnerable and when their world has just crumbled? And the answer is clearly yes. So it was ancillary to everything we did, but it was really relevant to the employees to watch us lead that effort rather than a trailing part of taking care of their industry. So I think that social causes are great, but if they're not relevant to the employees, they don't really matter. So
I think it's such a great point, because what you're saying is there needs to be alignment. And Anthony, I'm just going to kind of rephrase something you said, which is if it's not embedded, if it's not aligned with the organization, it can feel very inauthentic. In this particular case, like what you're saying, Jim, is that it was very authentic because you're helping the human beings that work in your industry. And so it felt like it was something that was aligned to you. Same question, Anthony. When did people get it right? When have you seen people get it wrong? How do I think about this as a founder? I want to make sure that my company is providing, and let's assume for a moment that I want to make sure my company is providing a positive impact beyond my employees and the relationship I have with them. How do I start thinking about that as a founder?
I think there's a very small handful of brands that I can think of that have gotten this right. And that's why I have this little bit of an allergy to it. Not that I don't think companies should be doing right, but if you're doing great things and you're really impacting the community and you're bragging about it, I think I think it's the wrong. So I think the companies that are doing it right are the ones that we don't know about. So I mean, then it's truly self-serving. If it's in their sales deck, then they're probably not doing it for the right reasons. So I think Patagonia is you brought them up earlier, because I think they are a great example of somebody that's doing it that started out that way. REI is kind of that same way. They're a social impact company. Funny how they're kind of in the same space.
But it's also like that's a very authentic thing.
Tom's. I don't know a lot about these companies, so they're probably doing something that somebody's pissed off about, because that always happens. But I think Tom's also has a good mission and message around it. So those that are doing it wrong is everybody else that's talking about it as a marketing tactic.
And so I think that's the main point. And so I think it's almost impossible to compare most companies to Patagonia because of their governance, their ownership structure. You know, their founder stayed in control up until very, very recently, where he put his shares into a trust. But Jim, I want to ask that question, which is it, as a founder, let's say that I'm passionate about supporting tower families and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
How is that a press release? How do I leverage that? Is that something for my employees? Is that a story? Or do I try to create goodwill through public relations efforts by talking about the good that I'm trying to do in the world? It's a weird balance to strike.
Yeah. And not only that, if you're trying to get people to talk about it, then you're not doing it. and if people see you do it, you talked about authenticity. Authentic is the #1 chat GTP looked up word in 2024.
Really?
And
that's great.
all of our employees are looking for stuff that's not filled with fraudulent, fake BS. And if you're real, people are going to know. You can't fake that you care about people. And that really, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're taking out a press release that you're a nice guy, you're probably not.
I mean, so I want to touch on this because this is really the argument in favor of trying to embed impact and social causes into your business, which is, it is overwhelming. The generation that, I'm 26, so I'm pretty young. I know you guys are pretty old. But the generation that's behind me look for lack of a better word, a positive social impact for companies that they want to join. And so it becomes an important element on the recruitment side, recruitment and retention. And so the CEOs that I've talked to about this, they look to try to say, how can we embed this at the employee level? And so I just want to get your thoughts, Jim. Is that something you've seen? And if so, how do you navigate this? And to your point, Anthony, it's so complex because what one set of employees might care about in Boise, Jim, might be different than, right? Those could be very different elements. So, Jim, how do you think about that from an employee perspective?
Well, #1, I think the cart is in front of the horse, because the first thing that people, especially of any age demographic, and listen, I give a talk about this all the time. Like I get a group of people, and you get the old guys on the right and the young girls on the left, and You got two groups of people that are segregated not by gender but by age. Okay, and I say, is respect given or earned? And all the people on the right say, oh, it's earned, you got to earn it. And all the people on the left say, oh, it's given. And I'm like, well, what if we earned it before it was given? And what if we gave it before it was earned? Wouldn't everybody win? And my point in that is that if people who want to work for you and are attracted to that business understand that the first thing you're going to do is listen to them, and the second thing you're going to do is teach them, because there's no teaching anymore. It's like throw them in the pool, let them swim. And instead of that apprenticeship style of approach to new employees, we're like going, well, if you don't have the computer skills, then you have no value. And that's just the wrong way to approach people. So I would say that if you don't listen, number one, you're not going to hear which social impact is important to them, but you're not even going to get them to stay around long enough to enter the conversation.
Anthony, I mean, your thoughts on retention and hiring in this space?
This is a whole nother episode that we so hard to wrap this into a single thought in an impact episode. But I question whether or not impact your company's stated impact has anything to do with retention. Retention is fairly simple. Pay people what they're worth, treat them well.
I mean, so you say that, but all the surveys that come out is like people are attracted to companies, all things being equal, that have some sort of a
come on, Chris. Most people care about their own and rightfully so, their own self-interest, feeding their kids, putting a roof over their head, getting ahead financially. That's why they have a job. And so of course they're going to say, I want to work for a company. It's such a first world problem, right? Of course they're going to say, I want to work for a company that has impact. Of course I'm going to say that on a survey because that makes me feel good about myself. But if Monsanto's going to double my salary, I might try to figure out what Monsanto's going to do that is positive and overlook all the negative stuff that they've done.
Yeah.
So it's pay them a fair wage, pay them a good wage, treat them right, give them purpose.
It's an entirely counter argument, Jim, which is, hey, not only am I going to pay people fairly, I'm going to ask them and support them. I may even match some donations that they make because I can't predict what you care about as an employee.
Exactly.
But I do want to support that, and I want to support you. Was that your approach, or did you do something different?
You know, we came alongside people too in that fashion and said, listen, if something's important to you and it's not, illegal, immoral, et cetera, and you want to donate some money, man, we'll come alongside you and do that. But that happens at later stages. That doesn't happen in early stages, really, that I can see. I mean, I've never met a founder yet in his first year who said, I want to give my employees $100 to give away. You're worried about where next payroll is coming from. However, when you create and craft a better reason for them to come back, then they'll come back to work. And that doesn't look like anything to do with social impact. That has to do with, do I like my job? Does my supervisor listen to me? And are they not like making Molotov cocktails for for the latest generation of
are they not doing evil? Yeah.
You said Monsanto, and I'm like, double my salary, and I'll go in and change Monsanto.
Of course, that's what you're going to say to yourself, right?
Yeah.
I want to touch on a component that I think is a little bit even deeper than this idea of corporate social responsibility impact, because I do think it's so hard. I think as founders, the single piece of advice I got from a venture capitalist very early on is, if you want to be a true impact company, make sure you embed that very, very early, because going to venture capitalists who are venture capitalists somewhere along the way and being like, hey, by the way, I'm going to take half of our revenue and give it to some cause is not necessarily good for your job security as the CEO.
Or just start as an open project and switch to a for-profit, like OpenAI did.
Can be. Right. So
It's called bait and switch.
But I want to talk about something I think is a little bit more challenging. And it's this idea of values, and it's this idea of what you stand for as a company. And I think that one of the things that's really challenging, and I've heard this, in my business school classes and just in talking to other people, is it feels like a lot of companies today lack a backbone, lack true moral values. And then the moment that they get faced with something, they tend to be like, oh, sure, yeah, whatever, and don't actually live by this. And famously in today's, in 4/14/2026, OpenAI lost a lot of people to Claude based on their stance about sharing data. And Claude just stood up and said, no, thank you.
That's not why OpenAI lost their customers.
Again, whether or not that's true. Thank you for contradicting.
Sorry, Chris.
So, the idea there is that's a narrative that exists. Is that something that I, as a CEO, need to be thoughtful about, as a founder, need to be thoughtful about? And even though it's not the true idea of an impact, I think it's the layer deeper, Jim. I know it's a tough question, but love your thoughts.
It's a super easy question. The only thing that's scalable in the entire planet is people choosing to do the right thing. And if you tell your employees you want them to do the right thing, guess what? You hold that expectation. And given a choice between the right thing and the wrong thing, and people know that there's a good consequence for choosing rightly and a bad consequence for choosing wrongly, people are going to choose the right thing. We sat at a conference room table once. I was with my son, and it was like this tier 1 carriers on the other side of the table with 13 people, and you got a father and son sitting on the other side of the table. It's really early in the days of the business, and they said how to get your people to maintain quality. And my son said, we ask him to do the right thing. And the eyes went up, and a young guy down on the other end of the table said, well, what about, he was trying to prove himself in a room full of seniors. He said, well, what if they don't know the right thing to do? And Ryan said, well, we ask him to do the best right thing. And
that's a good answer.
Because he doubled down on it, this kid was pretty upset. And he said, well, what about when they don't know to do the best right thing? What do you do then? He said, well, we give them one of your phones and we ask them to call us.
Pretty good
and
idea.
There's a lot of truth in that. If you tell people to do the right thing and they do the wrong thing, you have just presented yourself with a wonderful training opportunity. They paid tuition, and it's not going to be fun, but we're going to clean it up and let's go on. And the only thing that's scalable in safety, if you talk about safe behavior, climbing towers at 150 feet above the ground, and you tell people to tie off, they don't get a chance to make a mistake. And so the only thing that's scalable is them choosing rightly. And that's a condition where you're like, okay, if you don't tie off and you want to work here, well, you can't. Okay. That's
I
wonder
somebody's 400 feet on a tower and they're tying in if they're thinking about the company's impact at that moment.
You know what? You'd be surprised how far away they could see my truck. And I learned I would carry binoculars in my truck all the time and a long lens telephoto camera. And I would make a big deal about saying, hey, tell Fred to come down. Fred's always a bad guy in our company. Tell Fred to come down because I'd like to talk to him. And I say, Fred, sit in the truck because you don't work here anymore. Because I just, you were just not tied off. And that happens maybe once or twice in a career. And all of a sudden the word gets out, this dude is serious about it. But that's encouraging people to do the right thing. And then teaching and training and telling are the 3 T's that you have to do in order to make that work. And you have to live it, because if you don't live it, people are thinking it's all a bunch of hogwash. Well, hogwash gets thrown out after the hogs are washed. So,
Anthony, I need to get to the speed round, but same question around the idea of values and how do you make sure you're being consistent with those?
By being consistent with us. Like by you being consistent with us. That's it. That's the answer.
Wonderful insight, Anthony. Thank you very much. All right, Jim, are you ready for the speed round?
Boy,
He's not the best color commentator in baseball. Kill a profitable partnership to protect your values or keep it?
kill it.
Your best employee doesn't care about your values. Keep them?
No.
At what company size does impact become impossible to maintain?
That's a great question.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Such a good
And then,
question.
should you ever have a corporate social responsibility department or
No.
corporate
No. I don't even
Another
think you
great
should have
question.
an HR department, man.
Excellent. Deep dive resources, Small Giants, the companies that choose to be great instead of big, by Bo Burlingham. Lean Impact, how to innovate for radically greater socially good, by Ann Mei Chang. But we're also going to go visit Jim on his website, thejimtracy.com. I like it. It's the Jim Tracy. It's not just jimtracy.com.
Well, there's another Colorado Rockies baseball coach that stole my name.
I thought that you were going to be the Jim Tracy baseball coach when I first saw you. It's like, but I'm glad that we had this conversation. Also, I'm a long-suffering Rockies fan, so I would have just complained. It would have been fun. Right. Jim, great conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Very good stuff, Anthony. You want to get us out of here?
Thanks everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We're almost at 200 episodes, so you guys keep this podcast going. Please hit the subscribe, like, share the subscribe, like, and share for us. And you can learn more about it by going to howtofounder.com, where you can also see where we broadcast on LinkedIn. Our podcast is also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify channels. You are the pioneers of economic prosperity, and we're just really grateful to be here along the way with you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
It's almost as if you have no business training at all.